Okay, this is video number 2, and in the previous video we had a look at this motor running with this large, physically large volume start capacitor, 100 microfarads. I also mentioned in that video that this is the capacitor that the motor originally came with, which has the same capacitance, 100 microfarads. I know it says MFD, but that is microfarads, but a much lower voltage rating. And we found that in measuring the voltage on this capacitor that it rose up to something like about 180 volts, which if we get that on this capacitor, then it's probably pushing it a little bit too high. Remember, although it does say 125 volts, that's 125 volts RMS. So we can multiply that up by about 1.4 times square root of 2. But even so, it does seem to be getting a little bit close. So in the previous video, anyway, what I said was we were going to try this capacitor next, but then I thought, no, hang on a moment. It's very easy for me to just do, because of all the those push fit connectors, that I could just try a different capacitor which has the same connectors on. So we're just going to try that this time. So rather than using a 100 microfarad capacitor, we have now considerably reduced the capacitance, so it's only 30 microfarads, and but it's still the capacitor is rated for 450 volts AC. So let's give it a go. Now, there's no way that I can measure things like the effect on starting torque or anything like that. So it's just really, it's going to be an ever so simple test. Does the motor spin up? Apparently normally. Okay, so, and also actually we can also look at the voltage on the capacitor as well, but first of all let's just flick the switch, see if the motor starts. And it started. No weird noises, no smoke or anything like that. The voltage on the capacitor is currently it's falling at the moment, so it looks like it's self-discharging a little bit. So actually, what we'll do, we just stop the motor. And yeah, the voltage has dropped, because if you watch the previous video, you'll understand the centrifugal switch closes. And so any voltage that's on the capacitor can then, whatever charge is in there, can discharge through the two windings. So this time, let's just have a quick look at the needle then. So we're looking at the topmost scale. We've got it on 600 volts range, just in case. We might need to change it to a different range, but let's just see what happens now. And it seemed to go, interesting now, it seemed to go probably no more than about 100 volts. That's a little bit interesting, because and this is a bit curious, I can't explain this. This is 100 microfarads, and this one rose up to about 180 volts. We've gone for a lower capacitance, and it's gone for a it's risen up to a low voltage. Now, presumably that's going to have something to do with the capacitive reactance. I would have to get my pen and paper out and figure out what exactly is happening there. So for the moment, it's just more observations rather than any calculations or conclusions. So let's just change that to now 150 volts scale. So this time we're looking, just this hopefully will give us like a better idea of the actual voltage. So not the topmost one to 600, you're looking at the next one down, which goes from 0 to 150. Let's start the motor up. That to me looked very much like it rose up to 150 volts. Which is interesting, because previously we had something like about 100 volts, didn't we? So difficult to make a conclusion there. Is it my meter? Is it something else? Maybe let's just try starting it. Notice how it's discharging more quickly this time as well. Let's stop the motor. There we go. And let's do a restart. Oh, and this time it was only about 100 volts. So maybe that is consistent with the previous occasion. As I say, I don't know that we're actually doing anything particularly scientific at the moment. It's more like just hook it up and see what happens. Okay, so in any case, the motor seems to be starting perfectly fine. There's nothing on the nameplate to say what capacitor it should come with, so it really is a bit of anyone's guess. Now, if I get a chance, I'm going to record a third video, and we might have a look at some voltages on the capacitor that the motor came. I bought it secondhand, but the capacitor that came with this motor when I acquired it. Okay, so not necessarily the original start capacitor, but the one which it came with to me. Okay, thanks very much for watching.